Hey friends, it's great to see you again. So there's been a lot coming through about connecting with the higher self and the soul, getting very clear on intuition, very clear on life purpose, and a lot of other elements when you think about what does it mean to be in this world, be in this body, and figure out good psychic abilities, good intuition, clarity and alignment with life purpose especially, and then tie in the entire chakra model, which is incredibly useful and dynamic and valuable in terms of healing, in terms of empowerment, in terms of looking into patterns and archetypes of how your world is, how you perceive your world, and the blocks you might perceive to reality. So I'm going to go through a lot of these topics. Many of these topics, if not all of them, could probably have multiple textbooks written about them. So if you're used to watching my videos, you'll probably know I tend to go pretty deep and pretty broad. In other videos, I go very specific. But if I mention any topic and you're curious to go deeper in that topic, or even just build a fundamental understanding and feel I go too fast, just hit me up one-on-one and I'll be happy to help you however I can. So as I wrote in the description, if you consider what you are, who you are, in the Western material world, in the public school system, we learned we are a body, we have a mind, and some people just mix the mind and brain together and they say they're one thing. And the idea of soul is more of a metaphor, it's more whimsical. For a lot of us who have been on the spiritual path and found our definitions of these things, usually a soul is more close to the word essence, the essence of who you are. And if you've ever had a past life recollection, the word regression I don't feel is really syntactically accurate, but if you've attuned with and connected with a past life and you knew that as you, or you astral projected and had an out-of-body experience where you floated away, and maybe like the neuroscientist Eben Alexander or many other people out there, you saw things that you otherwise would not have seen. A lot of people who leave their bodies and the operating table describe like the roof of the hospital, the conversations doctors had when they were brain dead. So a lot of these experiences, near-death experiences, can convince you that you as consciousness can perceive information different than just the brain, what the brain and senses can. So as we go deeper down the spiritual ladder, we realize, oh, hey, the soul, the true self is vast. It's lived not just many lifetimes, but if you go deeper and you look at certain principles of holographic nature of the universe, the nonlinear nature of time, then you maybe have encountered the idea that all of reality isn't just happening in linear time, it's all happening like this. And I feel that a lot of the Enlightenment traditions' constant saying of this is now is all that is because everything is a huge internal now, and external now, and eternal now, internal, external, eternal. So if you think about you as an eternal soul and the vastness of everything, and a lot of times when people go very deep, they feel themselves as God or goddess, maybe only for a fraction of a second, because as I like to say, unless you can levitate a cat and make it fart sprinkles, you don't have all of the powers of a god at any moment that you would choose. But you at least get this perception. And whether you want to call it a psychological metaphor or a literal actual thing is up to you. But for the purposes of magic and manifestation, I find that it's useful to take literally, but just like your full human potential involves being able to speak up the 10 languages fluently, play the piano, do backflips, dance tango, do handstand, like walking on your hands, and like all the human skills you've heard of, all your divine abilities too are things that require learning, require development, require foundational skills. So the people we hear of, the Merlins, the Jesuses, the very high-level masters, well, I guess not anybody who's a devout Christian who only believes one person had that level of consciousness. But for many of us, there's a continuum of consciousness. So just like intellectual intelligence, there's a continuum. Physical strength, there's a continuum. The ability to play the piano, there's a continuum from not at all to such an excellent expert that if you didn't sleep and were completely drunk and didn't practice for a week, you could still play beautifully and incredible if you were, say, world class. Not to say you should try all those things together. So in spiritual intelligence, imagine that there's a continuum from people who are just not really aware or curious about these things to the Dalai Lama, to ascended masters, to angels and archangels, to divine beings, to the all-one pervading consciousness, you, when you have that moment of realization and you're connected with it. So the idea of the chakra system And I'm just offering this as one idea, one structure, one map. Feel free to add, discard, modify everything I'm sharing to the things that feel true for you. I just found it's good to speak definitively for those who don't really have clarity, to at least have one option to hold 100% as true until they expand and customize it or personalize it or change it, if that feels right. It may not. So having studied this stuff for about 22 years and practiced it intensely, I found that the chakra system is incredibly valuable in this process of not only awakening to your true nature as an infinite divine being, understanding what the heck that is, and walking along that continuum. So that doesn't mean you'll levitate cats tomorrow. That doesn't mean you'll be able to teleport and become a light body and heal cancer with a touch in a month or even a year of practice. Even if it's devout monastic-like practice in a monastery, usually the growth of any skill takes time. A massive psychological and spiritual shift can take time. And as many have said, as I feel, enlightenment, awakening, ascension, they're all continuums. Until you're a literal planet and you are Gaia, you are the earth, you are Pandora, you are some world for the equivalent of many days, not just a second or two in a vision, you have some leveling up to do. So however many million years that is. So what does it mean to awaken these things more quickly? So I've often said we need a Tim Ferriss of spirituality, and I'm more than happy to step up into that role and be one of the many people who do that, because there's a lot of folks now who share this type of material, which is great. Hey, Anya. Hey, Azin. It's great to see you too. So if you think about what Tim Ferriss does, he finds really efficient ways to level up in skill. He uses biochemistry. He studies world masters, people who've broken records. He looks at why certain skill developments are faster or slower in certain types of people. And so I've been doing that with energy stuff, with spiritual stuff, with shamanic stuff, with magic, which I just call the science of applied consciousness. And so as I've been doing that, I found maybe there's ways of developing psychic abilities, manifestation, opening chakras more quickly than, say, go to a school, read a book, and don't do any practice work. Like looking at all the traditions around the world, what's the best of the best? That's been part of my goal. So as you look at each chakra and what chakra represents, it's a different element of reality. So the first chakra, the root, the Muladhara, as it's said in Sanskrit, is often the groundedness of being. And if you have a strong, healthy root, you are at peace with the pace of time, you're at peace in and with the material world, and you're comfortable being grounded. You're here. If you don't have a healthy root, all those things wouldn't be present, or wouldn't be present to some degree compared to the example I gave. Maybe a little bit more anxiety, maybe flightiness, maybe skittishness. Those can all be manifestations of a weak or partially closed or partially blocked root. And I know this because I've dealt with a lot of those things. And doing a lot of root work on myself, if I don't maintain those practices, just like having a strong and healthy muscle. If you work out a lot, your muscles are strong. If you don't, likely they are less strong. So working your root, healing your root, understanding your root chakra can help you master the material world. Hey, Cosmo and Destiny, it's great to see you. So as you really strengthen your root, as you take your time to learn about it, just as like, say you had heart trouble and you wanted to do great in triathlons, you would learn about the heart, what nutrition does it need, what activities, what types of breathing, and you would learn to heal it and strengthen it at one point, hopefully, and not just be dependent on people you go to for appointments, whoever they might be, whatever they might practice. Hey, Joshua, it's great to see you, brother. So as you're considering strengthening your root chakra, that's strengthening your relationship to the material world and the flow of time. And when you look at people who have strong physical bodies, who succeed a lot in the material world, often the root chakra accompanies that. So on the energetic, on the etheric template level, if you're considering, well, what does it mean to have a really healthy root? What does it mean to have a good groundedness in this present reality? Then just look for those people as examples. And if you want to look at your manifestations, don't just consider what you can visualize, what you can feel good about, what you can perfectly describe, what you can vision board, but consider what is present in this material reality at this present moment, at this point in time. Hey, you're welcome, Destiny. And at this point in time, what is present is a reflection of what your root chakra can hold. If you don't own, very many possessions, your root chakra is not expressed in that way. If you own many possessions, many houses, your root chakra is expressed in that way as well. If you look at consciousness being prime to energy or astral or etheric, which even Napoleon Hill talked about 100 years ago, that is also the template, the foundation, which can give rise to the physical. And if you look a little bit more, you can look at sacred geometry as directing the potentials of the quantum field, and the fact that matter phases in and out of our visible spectrum of reality 7 times a second, and focusing with the observer effect on the reality you want to create, not only is a manifestation practice, but it literally affects that quantum probability field with everything else and makes what you want to experience much more probable and likely. But if you don't have an open and healthy root, you may not be able to take that down into this material world related to things like money and possessions and your physical body, healing, patience, things like that. So when you consider the second chakra, I'm going to breeze over these now that I've built the first into the model. Second chakra deals with relationships. It deals with often body image, senses of self-worth. Second chakra deals with being able to receive the energy of water. It deals with your dantian, or your hara in Japanese, your core of energy of chi. It deals with your kidneys. All the chakras are related to so many things, just like your heart or liver are related to so many things. So your third chakra, the Manipura, that's related to your will. That's related to reality creation at your core of your energy body. A lot of people say it's the heart. It deals with digestion, and it deals with having the independent agency and determination to act in certain ways in this world, in this life. So if you're a slave, or your consciousness is inhibited, or your mind is inhibited by stuff you put into your body, or if you're apathetic or very depressed, likely your will isn't very strong. If you have a lot of addictions, a lot of habits or obsessions that are very hard to break, those are kind of hijacking your will. So strong heart, anahata, this is the core of your emotional body. You have such an incredible ability to feel love, to give love, to receive love, and to infuse emotional energy into the physical world. So the heart is kind of a bridge between the physical and the non-physical chakras. The throat's related to your truth. It's related to singing and speaking. It's related to authenticity. So if you know who you are as an authentic being, but you're not expressing that, the back of your throat might be open to have that clear knowing, but the front might be blocked, and possibly the root, if being fully authentic as you doesn't feel safe. When I was going through my own just phase of coming out, I did a lot of work with those chakras because it involved both those topics, truth to myself and feeling safe in this world, being myself. So third eye, really popular chakra, if not the most popular right now in a lot of circles. Eye of Horus, third eye, sixth chakra. It's really a main chakra of the spiritual world coming up from the physical world. Helps you see and perceive energy, give and receive psychic communication. If it is clear and unblocked, you know those things to be accurate. If it is distorted or blocked, or there are ego wounds, and for a lot of people there are, for a lot of us in trauma, in situations of extreme pain or extreme discomfort, we often leave and escape our bodies. We might daydream, we might astral project, and having a really strong front of your third eye is excellent for those things. But if you don't have a healthy root, you don't stay grounded, and it's hard to discern information being accurate or just a delusion or a fantasy, which is why it's really important to work all the chakras together. And I know I'm going very fast, but I want to try to give a quick integrative model for this stuff. So crown chakra, associated with Christ consciousness, connection to the higher heavenly realms, connection to soul. And for a lot of channels like myself have a healthy seventh chakra and a healthy sixth chakra that are open and that are flowing. So what happens when you learn about these chakras, when you invest, say you really want to learn a lot, say you invest 20 hours in each chakra. Maybe you would take the time and invest 5 minutes and just look up one video on YouTube, or one of my videos, or you check out my book Magic is Real and read about them there. Whatever you do, you learn more and you apply that more. If you learn about nutrition, if you learn about fitness, you can then apply that knowledge to your life. And as my Sifu once said, we read for inspiration and we practice for progress. So if you've been hearing things that you say, yeah, I already know, I've already heard these. Hey, Danny and Lewis, it's great to see you too. If you've been developing these abilities, or you've been following my posts, or you're familiar with this stuff, you might say, oh, I've heard that before. I know about meditation. I know about visualization. I get the idea of manifestation, connecting with the divine. I know about prayer, but you actually do those things. If you think about strength training, I'm grateful to have a fair amount of muscle in my body, but I watched strength training videos and read strength training blogs much more than I used to actually weightlift far in the past. And, I got results, physical results, the more I did physical practice. So the same thing with all of this spiritual stuff. It's really wonderful to think about. It's exciting and inspiring to read. But if you don't do it, you won't level up in skill. And some of the skills are so valuable, so rich, so sensational that they're absolutely worth investing time into. So one of the skills of having a healthy and clear or clear-ish heart chakra relative, I guess, to the average person in our mainstream Western world, and an open crown chakra means you can channel and embody different aspects of yourself or other beings. So if I wanted to channel and embody a being who is very heart-centered, compassionate, and feminine, I would do something like this, and there'll just be a few seconds of silence. So you may notice that I've significantly shifted a core element of myself and my expression. My eyes are softer, my voice is softer and deeper. It's slower, more rhythmic, more water energy, and it's an element of self that, you're different from being a student, being an employee, being a lover, being a grandchild. Those are aspects of self. And as you develop the different chakras, as you get aware of yourself as a multifaceted being, you'll have access to these different aspects of yourself. So say I just want to speak from the ego of David in a higher fire, air energy like before versus a more water, earth energy now. But say I wanted to speak with you as spirit, and say I wanted to reach a higher level of distorted truth beyond what my mind could generate or provide in a given moment. So I'm going to go ahead and make that shift. And when you shift into a more integrated, soul-oriented level of being, you shift out of thought. You shift into a state of complete knowing and complete presence. You can choose to access thought, but you're above it. You have greater access to superconsciousness or the Akashic records. Now, one of the things that is really important to know here in terms of an accurate expectation for me, for you, for anybody who might see who the word psychic is used with or intuitive, is there are these things called ego filters. And these are discussed at length in my book, Magic is Real, and in future books, especially the chapters on channeling. So if you as an individual can shift your state of awareness into a higher frame of mind to access super consciousness, soul, Christ consciousness, there's many words for them in many traditions. And you have an egoic attachment to a topic. You may have a trigger or a block or a sub-personality, as teacher in France, Alain Forget would call it, that could block that information from coming in. So a very famous and accurate psychic named Edgar Cayce had many articles written about him in the news. He was such an accurate, intuitive, psychic, channeling, Akashic, the word you'd like to use is really not mattering at this moment, healer. Somebody would call him with an ailment, and before they would even finish speaking, he would say, go to the store 40 miles north in the very top shelf to the right, buy the second bottle of fish oil that has cayenne pepper in it. Something really obscure but really specific. And in the high majority of his cases, the stat isn't available at this moment, something like 93 to 95% of his cases, people were healed. And this wasn't the era of blood panels. This wasn't the era of microbiome and genetic testing. This was a guy who literally people called him on the phone, said a couple random things, and he didn't hypnotize them. He didn't try to convince them of some super placebo effect, which is a great thing you can harness and learn how to control at will. If you check out Joe Dispenza's book, You Are the Placebo, and a lot of things that I teach and offer on Patreon, the link is in the description and elsewhere. But being able to tap into the collective unconscious like that, get very specific and accurate information for anybody at a moment's notice, is a really nice ability. You could call it a superpower, mystical ability, or simple human skill that is often misunderstood, caricatured, and ridiculed. And if you really want to be rational about your spiritual development, consider what it means to have an informed opinion. Generally what that means is you've looked at both sides, the pros and the cons, the fors and the against. You've looked very deep and investigated a significant sample size to be scientifically accurate, So maybe you've talked with 30 people who are known as legitimate psychics and 30 people who use the word but are just doing, say, cold readings and aren't actually psychic in any way. Then you can have an informed opinion about what it really means and what expectations actually are. Can somebody read every thought you have, or do they just get general impressions of the things that most need attention in dialogue for healing, for growth, for transmutation, for wherever you are in your life right now? So to connect everything, to connect the chakras, manifestation, and higher self, as you ascend in awareness, which I talked about a little earlier in the video, if you're just joining, just replay for that. As you ascend in your awareness and have an embodied knowing of yourself as the extended world, of yourself as projecting reality around you, and having a peace and embodied knowing of that based on your mystical experiences, based on what your rational mind can accept. So your scholarly study, your books, your one-on-one studying, your workshops with credible, knowledgeable, skilled, validated people, then you'll start to understand this. And it won't just be a philosophy, but it'll be an embodied knowing. And from that state of knowing, which can be enhanced in certain states of consciousness, whether you're in a high frequency field with another person who has those vibes, whether you're working with a very powerful charged crystal, like a labradorite, often called the magician's stone. A lot of people have these experiences in near death or with certain other altered states of consciousness, like breathing or sweat lodges, or putting on binaural headphones, and or headphones capable of playing binaural beats accurately and getting in the theta state. So you'll notice as your awareness of yourself as this reality, creating this reality, expands, you can conceive of an idea, have the intuitive aligned higher self knowing that it's true and right. I talked about that earlier, and there's a bit of that in the description. And then hold that in present tense reality with full sensory immersion. Feel love and gratitude. You're engaging each chakra here. So here you're engaging the heart. Know the truth that that is right for you. Really see the details clearly. Don't just have a symbol, but really see everything clearly. Have the relationships very specifically defined. You and your surroundings, whether it's a job or a house or a healing or a lover or a gift or a serendipitous meeting, anything you're intending to manifest. And will it forward. The will, the third chakra, that's where it really comes into play. If your manifestation requires other people's activities, interactions, presence, you're going to have to take some actions. Probably go to an event, probably talk to people, maybe take actions in the physical world with your root chakra being present. And so as you develop this awareness and this reality and this knowing, you'll have a clearer sense of how much action and how much, you could say, spiritual action, engaging your soul and your higher self in this manifestation. And we'll get to purpose in a second. I know I promised that right in the beginning of the description. So as you get there, you'll realize, oh, I know I can take actions to make this thing happen, but as you do enough of these, as you do hundreds, you'll realize the amount of physical action and time in the physical world can gradually reduce as you build this skill. So whereas a certain goal might take you 100 hours if you were just to act in body and mind, if you were to fully embody and use soul after, say, 100 hours of manifestation practice, the time of achieving that goal would go from 100 down to maybe 10. And sorry, I used the number 100 twice. I hope that wasn't confusing to anybody. And why I can go from 100 to 10 is you can shift the probability field, and you can use your consciousness to move through different timelines and realities where there are different versions of everything, where there are different bodies and minds of yourself, where you do have a clearer and accurate, more accurate psychic intuition and can make the right decisions, cannot spend in the wrong areas, can be really and fully able to be aligned and know what's true for you, and to not self-sabotage yourself with limiting beliefs, with psychological projections, with carrying old wounds and traumas and protecting yourself from them repeating. And the many ways we do that in this world, codependence is a big one of those in relationships. And the nice thing about this is it makes a practical value to manifestation. And so if you could think of any skill, what would save you time so you have more of life? And by saving time, I don't mean rushing. I mean getting the same amount of quality and satisfaction, but in less time. Whether that's in sleep or reading or making money, like earning more money per hour, or being able to get a better workout in less time, learn language faster, anything that can be measured in terms of efficiency. So you can have more goals, more experiences in less time if that matters to you. But the value of this for humanity, the main reason I am on this journey, the main reason I'm making this video, I'm writing books, I'm building up the work of a thought leader, is because I'm looking at the world and I see so many ways it needs to change. And you probably might feel the same. There's a lot of ways where countries are governed, where the earth is changing, where people's happiness and health is declining. Just to have three really broad general topics related to suffering. And I absolutely believe that there are very efficient ways to reduce suffering. Raising quality of life, stabilizing the climate, having fair, open, transparent, and decentralized governments, those would all be great. And those are all generally massive, massive undertakings. But if you consider a massive undertaking needing to take less time and less money, it becomes more achievable, more possible. So if you believe stabilizing the climate and healing it should happen, if you believe governments should treat people more humanely and fairly, if you believe the school system should, and the work system should empower people and enable them to play and joy and feel love and happiness way more than they do in today's current, world order, you could say, and think maybe whatever goals you have to contribute to humanity, whatever hopes you have to make the world a better place, what if those could be achieved more quickly, experienced more quickly? What if people could learn ways of shifting their consciousness to the level of soul, away from the everyday, day-to-day level of reality of story, oh, that person cut me off in traffic, what a jerk, to my peace is independent of my surroundings, and I'm going to try to not let people cut me off because I care about getting somewhere on time, right? Where you can be mature, where you can be woken up and grown up at the same time. So this video has gone on for quite a bit, but I just want to add a few specifics to that overall worldview that I described. So as I wrote in chapter 13, The Future of Magic, part of my life purpose includes 4 specific actions, manifestations, appearances in the world. 3 involve temples, 1 for the advancement of magical science or the power of applied consciousness, looking at all the magical traditions, looking at all the technologies, the biochemistry hacks, the things that are said about crystals and astrology and moon phases and groups of people and brain states and number of years of practice. What does it take for somebody to become a Merlin or Jesus level magician, wizard, witch, healer, sorcerer, sorceress? People like William Bengston have routinely healed cancer in peer-reviewed Ivy League university laboratory research settings. There are techniques, there are people out there who can and have been demonstrated to, say, heal tumors with chanting. There's a Greg Braden video that's happening on ultrasound. There's a bunch of the copies of it on YouTube last I checked. So even if those abilities are only possible by really advanced people, just think of what it would do to the world of healing if we were more skilled and more efficient magicians. In the movie Aluna, the Kogi people, a shamanic tribe of Colombia, regrew a rainforest in about 20 years. Colombian government noticed it was clear-cut from, whatever business practices. That forest would have taken 200 years to naturally restore. And this tribe of people who, didn't have cell phones, didn't even have bank accounts or ID cards, used their practices, of course, did certain physical things probably as well, and regrew that forest 10 times faster. For all the deforestation, for all the increase in carbon and all the stuff with the weather and rising sea levels, what if we could do that with the forests we need to regrow? So there's a lot of other areas, but just 2 very practical things are, in my opinion, reasons to take science of applied consciousness or magic seriously. What if they're possible with 100,000 people who are at a certain level? Could we reform the glaciers in a month of ritualized practice? I think moonshots like this really should be answered. I think they should be attempted. I believe they are possible. And the reason I have things like Patreon and charge for lessons is because it, takes resources to build a temple, to build a movement, to find the best and most accurate ways of doing these things. So if you're training somebody, they're getting the absolute best experience they can, not just one qualified person, because there's a lot of qualified people out there. But if you want to be world-class, you need generally world-class practices. Hey, Gregory. Thanks, brother. I really appreciate it. Hey, Felix and Tristan and Brian and Maria. So Temple of Thoth is for that purpose. The Temple of Lakshmi is to help heal relationships with money, abundance, and debt. I think those topics are pretty self-explanatory. I'm not going to go on those for too much longer. But if you have, at any time in your life or now, any difficult relationships with those topics, or know people who do, most of us, it's many people, that's something I feel really needs to be changed in the world. And there's a lot of great thinkers and great organizations, great ideas and great systems to help with that type of transition. So that's something I really I felt called to contribute to. And then the Temple of Aphrodite to help with healing, help with restoration, and help with education in just basic and advanced practices related to love and sexuality. Relationships and sexual experiences, for those of us who choose to have them, can be one of the most fulfilling, empowering, delightful, supportive things in this world. But there's also such a massive amount of pain related to those two topics. People who weren't treated well, people who don't know how to or don't feel comfortable to connect, and everything related to body image and body functioning. So having a temple, having a research center think tank related to those topics that's completely transparent, that's completely open sourced, that follows the laws and practices of wherever it's located, I think the world really, really needs that. And I also know I chose to do that in this life. And then the fourth thing is a new city of Atlantis in 2041. Now, people might say this is more pie in the sky, but I think it's good to dream big. And if you believe you only have 80, 90, 100 years of life, or at least of this life, why not aim for the highest vision you can comprehend? And for me, one of those things is building a city that holds the highest practices, spiritually and technologically married, the highest expressions of knowledge, the highest expressions of advancement in these fields. And I think if we had a city like that, and I know there's smaller cities and gatherings and things like that, but I think if we had a city and we said, this is what we are aiming for around the world as a standard, as a high bar for this idea of a golden age, of a utopia we've all thought about and daydreamed about, I think it'd be wonderful as well to have something like that. And just the same, open source, transparent, something where everybody can share their collective visions, but also that has things that are objectively valuable for humanity. So if any of this resonated with you at all, please send me a direct message. If you care about any of these things happening, I'd love your support on patreon.com/magicaljoy. It would mean a lot, not only in being able to research these things and teach these things, but also make them happen. A temple is built brick by brick. And if you have any questions or thoughts or suggestions or requests, please post a comment to this video. I'm very happy to dialogue with it with you after it's published. And I think anybody else who sees this, you can also add to their experience and add to the discussion. So just to wrap this, like you, I'm a fellow student. I don't claim any certain title. Titles and words have been given to me, and those are wonderful, but I feel they're all generally subjective. And ultimately what matters is what is objective. Was this material valuable for you? Was it interesting to you? Are there things in it that you feel other people should hear? Or are there things that you feel are absolutely positively wrong or incomplete? Being open and honest and transparent and happy to learn from my own mistakes, whatever percent of soul or ego has come through in this video, I think I need to be responsible and hear anything anybody has to say regarding what I've shared so I can better serve more people. And all I would ask, if you care to give constructive feedback, because haters have come up in the past, is that you offer it either from an informed opinion or from a neutral opinion. If there's something judgmental or triggered that wants to come out, or there's a lot of assumptions there based on things that you really haven't confirmed, I'd offer for you to consider and sit with and think about that comment before you post, whether it's a few minutes, a few hours, or a day. If we want to have open minds to these incredible possibilities here, or if you've gotten through this whole video, if you want to interact with people and hope they have open minds to these types of topics when you talk about them, it's very, very good to be able to have that sense of groundedness and that sense of peaceful dialogue about anything that people might disagree with. A lot of the things in this video are pretty far out, pretty ahead of the curve, pretty advanced, and a lot of people I've met who I haven't known very well could just throw hours of skepticism at anything and everything I've said. And like Beyonce, what might say to people booing her, 20 people booing her in an audience of 10,000, it's not for them. So just like the things you're passionate about and the causes you care about, not everyone cares about that. So that's, I guess, the last thing I would leave you with is, as you're on the spiritual journey, whether you reach out for me to help you, you have your own guides, human or non-human, or some combination of that to help you, just realize and remember, this is your truth, this is your life, this is your experience. There may be other people who want to share many of those elements and who do. And if they don't, there's no need to proselytize. There's no need to push, project, convince. Just feel what's true for you. Who do you want to spend time around? Who do you want to learn from? who just doesn't really feel right to hang out with, but are you able to live peacefully in a world knowing that they exist in their truth, and unless they're actually, literally causing people harm, which is a whole separate metaphysical topic, they can just be. And maybe someday you can, learn from them and they can learn from you, whatever that looks like, and maybe not. And that's okay too. So thank you so much for your time. This has been a bit of a long video at 35 minutes. It's really an honor to serve you. I look forward to doing these Facebook Lives pretty regularly. And if you'd like to keep in touch, Patreon is a great way of hearing updates, hearing when workshops, seminars, things like this are going to happen. I'm going to aim to do Facebook Live pretty regularly, 2 days a week. But what I found is I really care to only speak when there's an authentic, rich message to share, and not just speak to speak, not just check the boxes of post a certain number of times a week. That stuff is important from a professional standpoint, but I think even more important is to serve with integrity and credibility. So that being said, until I post this stuff regularly, you definitely want some way of hearing from me. And if you're not interested in doing Patreon, my website, Magical Golden Age, it should have a sign up. If not, just connect me and I can add you, where you can get just regular emails on that newsletter and hear about future videos, transmissions, teachings, things like that too. All right, thank you so much. I so appreciate you. I'm just sending you a lot of love and a lot of gratitude for just being here and showing up on your journey. Whoever you are, wherever you're at in life, whatever you're going through, whatever you want to do, I see you, I believe in you, and I hope that every day a little bit more you believe in yourself in every way that really matters. And if there's a way that you think doesn't matter, maybe give that a shot too, because it's great to have love for yourself and confidence in yourself and your path. Even if it turns out to be something you shift from, it's great to, practice as much strength as you can. Yin, yin, masculine, feminine, generating, giving, and receiving. In a world where we're learning how to be powerful, and we're learning how to be heart-centered. And those two things have not gone together a lot in the world. Whether you're talking about men or women or other words for other types of genders or non-genders, just to use an umbrella term for everybody, the concept of a lot of power has often evoked fear. And I wanted to offer to you the possibility that you can grow in power in whatever ways it matters while keeping an open heart, while keeping kindness, compassion, gentleness, humility in your heart. And while, ideally validating that with a good coach or a friend or multiples of those who can be honest with you and real with you and give you feedback on yourself and on your growth so that your image of yourself is more accurate in terms of how other people see you. Ideally only with people you trust because everybody has an opinion. And my opinion of you is you're a perfect, beautiful being, and I would love to see you succeed. All right, thank you so much for your time, your energy, your love, and anything else you wish to share. Take care.